Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to Portugal for the first time in at least 2 years, and you know what, this is a country I really do not get to review all that many beers from. This is only going to be my 4th craft beer review from Portugal. I got 3 other beers from Cervejeira Colossus a few years back from Market Hall Wines in Durham, and then before that I did review Sagres, which is one of the big macro beers down in Portugal, so only the 5th Portuguese beer that's featured here on the channel actually, and it's another brewery who I have never tried anything from, so very curious to see how this one turns out actually. So for this review then we are going to go to Lisbon, the capital city, and we're going to have a look at my first ever beer from Cervejeira Dois Corvos. So this one is their Redrum. It comes in at 11.5% ABV, it's an Imperial Stout, and they've added cocoa and cherries to the brew, and then it's been aged in bourbon and port barrels, so it sounds like a little bit of a beast actually. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. We got this beer here in Sweden through the Tillfälligt assortment in Systembolaget. This one was released on the 30th of June 2020 if I'm remembering correctly, and you know, I just got this one because I was very excited to see a Portuguese beer. I love trying things from different countries, and as I've said in numerous other reviews, I think there's a bit of an unwritten rule in Europe that when a country is good at winemaking, they also tend to be very good when they try their hand at craft beer as well. And you know, Spain, Italy, Slovenia, Greece have all kind of met that expectation of mine so far, and the Portuguese beers that I had from Cervejeira Colossus those years ago were very nice as well. So hopefully this is one that turns out to be very nice, but I do know these guys are a very respected name within the Portuguese craft beer scene. So yeah, hopefully this is a good beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it as well. As I say, very rare to review a Portuguese beer, but a massive shout out to my good friend Craig over at Kent Beer Reviews. If you want to see more Portuguese beer reviews, do make sure you go and check out his channel. Craig's got a very nice kind of relaxed style of reviewing, and I always enjoy listening to his videos. I watched quite a few of his ones actually, but his wife is from Funchal in Madeira, and Craig's got a number of reviews from a good few years back where he sits on his father-in-law's roof, and you get a beautiful view behind him actually. I do look forward to seeing Craig review more beers up there. Those are some of my favourite videos that he's done, but Craig's reviewed a good number of Portuguese beers on the channel over the years, and as I say, if you're interested in those, do go and check them out. A very good beer reviewer in my mind, and a very nice guy to boot as well, so make sure you go over and show his channel some love. I'll put the link to it in the video description below. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Cervejeira Dois Corvos. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. I will make one for the Portuguese beers that I'll review for you, and hopefully I can add to that fairly regularly over the next little while, but Portuguese beers are a little bit difficult to get hold of, so I'll need to see what can be done about that. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Cervejeira Dois Corvos then, and I do apologise in this video for any bad Portuguese pronunciations because it's a language that I have not really had any contact with at all. So yeah, Cervejeira Dois Corvos, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Lisbon, the capital city of Portugal, and the company was founded by Scott Steffens and his wife Susana Casquez back in 2013. So Scott was originally from Seattle in Washington in the States, and he had a bit of a history of working as a brewer for a number of years, while Susana is originally Portuguese, and she worked in that area doing various different jobs. She's got a background in accounts and management, I think, from what I saw, but she also worked as a handicraft producer from what I gather as well. But this company was founded officially back in 2013, and they found an old wine cellar in the Marvila district of out in the east of the city, and the brewing equipment was acquired the following year in 2014, and then the first beers were produced and then released in 2015, and that year they also opened up their tap room as well, so you can actually go to the brewery, see them actually brewing the beers and then drink them as well, which is pretty damn good. But they've got a 20 hectolitre brew kit from what I understand, with fermentation tanks that are 20, 40 and I believe 60 hectolitres, and they've got an array of different barrels for aging their beers as well. And as of June 2020, when I'm producing this review for you, they've produced in the region of 140 different kinds of beer. The name of this brewery translates into English as the Two Crows Brewery, Cervejeira Dois Corvos, and like I said, these guys are one of the very respected names in the Portuguese craft beer scene. I think they are one of the bigger by volume producers, and yeah, they're supposed to do some very, very nice beers. Like I say, they've got a whole host of different styles and things that they've done, and this one I gather is one of the beasts that they do. And I think this is the first Portuguese beer that I've seen make it up here to Sweden in a very, very long time, but hopefully that kind of opens the door and we start to get more and more as well, actually. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Cervejeira Dois Corvos for the moment. Wasn't really able to find too much more information on them than that, but I guess maybe in future videos I can add a little bit more to it. I would love to get down to Portugal and just explore it a little bit, and of course try some more beers and things like that. But yeah, from what I gather, I had a good friend, as I say, at who worked at the guys at Market Hall Wines in Durham. That was where I got the Portuguese beers last time, and they were saying, you know, the Portuguese wines are really kind of unappreciated and things like that. And I guess, you know, it kind of reminds me of that a little bit as well when we talk about the Spanish beer scene. Spanish wines are a lot more expensive than Portuguese wines because, you know, everyone knows Spain is a wine country and things. And the Spanish craft beers are really getting out there a little bit more as well. So I really hope that this is the start of the Portuguese beers starting to do the same. We're seeing a lot of countries, that the wine countries in Europe do tend to be very, very good when it comes to craft beer in my experience. As I said, you know, Greece, Italy, Slovenia as well, and Spain, and now hopefully Portugal are kind of all showing that that statement seems to hold true. So yeah, as I say, that's all I can really tell you about Cervejeira Dois Corvos for the moment. I hope we get more of their beers up here in Sweden, or at least I can find them in Copenhagen, fingers crossed, because I'm not too far away from there. But yeah, looking forward to trying more Portuguese beers in the future. But if you want to learn more about this brewery, you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's see how we got on with this one then. And if you are watching from Portugal and you do know a web shop or something that sends off to the rest of the EU, do let me know, because hopefully maybe I can make a Portuguese order and get a few more Portuguese beers reviewed for you on the channel. I would absolutely love that. So yeah, let's see how we go with this one then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. You can see really, really nicely presented. I think there is an original Redrum version as well, but this one is obviously I think this one is obviously a special edition of the beer. But I can see the artwork on the label there is very, very nice. It looks like I don't know what that is meant to be. The pile of stuff there, it looks like it's cherries. Being stupid, yeah, the pile of stuff there is cherries, but the artwork on this is very, very nice. Actually, I think I'll need to keep this bottle because, as I say, Portuguese beers are pretty damn rare. But there you can see, there are the two crows symbol on the back there, which is pretty damn cool. It says on the side of the label here, Redrum unveils the creaminess of chocolate and a river of sour cherries, and brings complexity from a year spent aging in bourbon and port wine barrels. Unforgettable. I'm guessing what they do is they split the batch in half and then they blend it together or something like that. And then that's what you get from. But there you can see doiscorvos.pt as the website, and there you can see they've got a lovely nice bottle cap on that one as well. So that one will be going in my collection to keep. So yeah, as I say, my first Portuguese beer in like, I think it is probably slightly over 2 years, come to think of it. I think the ones that I had from Colossus, I think I filmed them all around the same time, but then released them a little bit later, so it might not be over 2 years in terms of publication, but yeah, it has been over 2 years since I've drunk a Portuguese beer. But yeah, 330ml bottle. This one, I think I paid 60 crowns for this one. So 60 crowns is roughly about €6, £5 British. So for an 11.5%, for an 11.5% Imperial Stout, I think that's pretty good. That's one of the things I love about Systembolaget. And as you can see, you know, a lot of people complain about Systembolaget and things, but you know, they do get random beers like this in, and I suppose I'm very lucky to be so close to Copenhagen as well, because I can just go across and get, you know, different beers from over there. I've got the free market and I've got the Systembolaget system right on my doorstep, so I'm very, very lucky in that regard. But they do get us some really interesting things like this. When you open up this beer, by the way, you really can smell the kind of sweet and sharp kind of cherries coming out of this one. I think this is going to be an absolute monster of a beer. But yeah, as you can see, the head on this one has gone down a little bit, but there was about a half finger of a frothy kind of medium to medium tan head on this. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. You can see a few little things going up towards the bottom of that head there, but the head is just fading away to be a very, very thin foamy layer now. But it does look like a very, very nice beer, this one. If we shine the light through it, it's pretty much as black as night. There is a little bit of a Coca-Cola coloured edge to it on the surface when you put the light through it, but you know, overall it does look pretty nice actually. So yeah, really, really nice looking Imperial Stout. This one, as I say, it's very, very dark, and of course that is what you'd expect. So nothing overall particularly surprising about the appearance of this beer when you consider what style it is, but let's have a look at that aroma then and just see how we get on. Ooh, yeah, that smells really pretty damn nice. Yeah, the aroma on this beer is just ridiculous. I mean, straight away you're going to get that lovely kind of sharp, tart note from the cherries. That kind of almost saturates your nose a little bit. But yeah, some other fruits kind of start to evolve out of that later. It gets from being like really sharp and tart and cherry-like, it goes to being a little bit more, it really goes to being a little bit more kind of, as you say, it goes to being a little bit more kind of like blackcurranty and blackberry-like, to be honest with you. So I really like that about this, I really like that about how this beer goes together. There are, I mean, it will be straight up cherries and things like that, but you will get a few fruits coming out of the hops and stuff, I would guess, as well. But yeah, there are a few sort of blackcurranty, blackberry notes to it, the sharp cherries, like I said, and maybe some kind of juicy plums and things too. There is a bit of a raisiny sharpness in there as well. So to me, the fruity aromas, it is mainly cherry, and the cherries are the most kind of obvious part of it, but I think there is a wee bit more complexity to it than that, to be honest with you. But yeah, the fruits are the first thing that are going to jump out at you from this beer, but of course there's a hell of a lot more complexity to it than that. Of course, the next thing that's going to strike you is the wood. I mean, it is a barrel aged beer, that's the first thing. So to me, this beer actually comes across as really quite leathery. I mean, you can smell the kind of nice smooth oaky notes in there. There is a bit of that kind of Werther's Original type brown sugary note, which is always going to come out in barrel aging. I don't know if there's a wee bit, I don't really get much in the way of vanilla out of this one. This one, to me, the woody notes almost come across as being a little bit more kind of spicy or something like that. Yeah, it's really interesting, that, I have to say. I like how the I do like how the woodiness comes out in this, and I'm finding the more that I'm smelling it and the more I'm paying attention to it, the fruits actually get juicier and juicier as well. They still have a bit of sharpness to them, in fairness, but they do get juicier and juicier. So yeah, I really like how that sort of how that kind of goes together in this one. It's really nice actually how all these kind of woody notes together. Dog's going crazy, someone comes in the house. But yeah, that dog, man, crazy. But yeah, the woodiness that comes out of this, I do find that it gets really nice and kind of leathery. For me, there's a real kind of leathery quality comes out of this one, I have to say. So yeah, that's really forming the backbone of the beer, that nice kind of smooth, I'm guessing it's oak probably, it's coming out of this one. But of course you can, if it's a bit spicy, it might be something else as well. You can age beer in the likes of walnut and things like that, which has a wee bit more of kind of spicy note to it. But yeah, nice kind of smooth notes in there, a little bit of that sort of Werther's Original syrupy brown sugary quality to the beer, a bit of spice in there also. But yeah, I don't really get much vanilla from this one, which is a little bit unusual for a barrel aged beer. But on top of that, you can smell the cocoa And the cocoa is interesting because it almost comes across like quite a dry, powdery type chocolate. You know, if you stick your nose inside one of these kind of mixes that you use to make, you know, instant hot chocolate, it's kind of like that. If you stick it in and smell that kind of powdered chocolate, that's what really strikes me about this one. It has that almost thing, but just a little bit more kind of a high percentage cocoa chocolate. So I do like how that, side of this beer goes together. The chocolate to me comes across as quite dry and powdery almost. So yeah, I do like how that kind of drier side of things, I do like how the drier side of things goes together. The aroma is very, very nice. It's an interesting combination that you've got the smoothness and sweetness of the woody and the woody, oaky, leathery type stuff underneath. Then you've got a bit of dryness to the malt base as well. So there is quite a contrast in that. That's really unusual for me. On the hoppy side of things, there's a wee bit of earthiness, which is kind of what you'd expect, although most of the hoppiness of course has dropped out because the beer's been aged for a year. But you do get a bit of earthiness. You can pick up a few remnants of a sort of kind of grassy and slightly floral thing there, but yeah, mostly the hoppy side of the beer is slightly earthy. But as I say, it's for me the thing that lingers there. It's the sort of powdery chocolate. It's the woody, leathery type thing, and then you've got the sharpness of the cherries, but then you've got the other juicy fruits kind of lingering in that as well. So the aroma of this beer, I think, is pretty damn nice actually. It's interesting the port side of it as well, because I think the port probably. Port is a very sweet wine from what I remember. I do enjoy a good port actually, but I've not had one in ages, come to think of it. I need to have a look at Systembolaget and see what they've got, because that was my best friend actually, he loves a good port, and I think he's a bit more nerdy on that than I am. So but yeah, I do enjoy a good nice kind of sweet port. So probably to some degree the fruitiness that's coming out of this one, that it will be a little, if you think about red wine barrel aging, I would imagine that aging it in port barrels is going to add a little bit of the sourness to the beer, come to think of it, and probably the kind of more leathery notes will be coming from the bourbon barrels. American bourbon of course is considerably sweeter, I think, than my native Scotch whiskies, if you like. So yeah, that's probably why you've got a good bit of kind of brown sugar to this one as well. But yeah, really interesting aroma this one. Take a bit of time to mull it over, because I think it's quite a quirky aroma you're getting out of this one compared to a number of other beers, at least the ones that I've had in recent times. So yeah, take a bit of time to enjoy that before you get stuck in. But yeah, this one is the Redrum. I don't know, I guess you can say this is the barrel aged version, coming in at 11.5% ABV, an Imperial Stout with cocoa and cherries added to the brew, and then aged in bourbon and rum barrels. So yeah, I think this is going to be a little bit of a monster, but my first Portuguese beer in over 2 years actually, so pretty damn cool. So let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, felicidades. Cheers. Ooh, now that is nice. First impression is, it's got a wet mouthfeel to it, but at the same time it really makes your palate dry, like really quickly. I like that actually, little fruit fly. But yeah, that is a nice beer. I will say thumbs up to Cervejeira Dois Corvos for this. They've pulled off something pretty damn good here. And obviously this is one of their beers that is a bit more of a beast compared to some of the other ones. So I always find that to get an impression of what a brewery is all about, you do need to try something at the dark side of the spectrum, and something at the light end of the spectrum. But if this is obviously one of the ones that this is a beer that is just a bit of a monster, to be honest with you. So we are going in at the deep. We are kind of jumping in at the deep end with this brewery. But I have to say, really impressed with this one. This is nice, and it's quite quirky compared to a lot of the other beers. It's not off. I mean, where else are you going to get a port barrel aged Imperial Stout? Portugal. And that's probably about it. I guess maybe Brazil at a push because of the Portuguese heritage, but yeah, definitely. So this is quite a nice beer. I'm finding that the more I drink of this one, the kind of drier it gets. But yeah, there's a hell of a lot of complexity to that. So yeah, let's try, and I need to take a few more sips of this just to get it going, to be honest. But yeah, what you'll find is when you take this beer in, you do get a lovely bit of kind of sharpness and sourness from the cherries here. But then the front of your palate just juices out quite nicely. I really like that. But yeah, this is definitely one of the drier barrel-aged Imperial Stouts that I've come across. And the thing that you always get with an Imperial Stout, in my experience, is that the mouthfeel kind of goes down a little bit, and that comes... you get a trade-off, you know, the mouthfeel isn't quite as thick as the original stout would be, but then you get these more kind of infused flavours that come into it. So yeah, definitely a trade-off there. But yeah, this is definitely one of the drier barrel-aged Imperial Stouts that I've had, but it does work for it, actually. It does really work for this beer. So yeah, let's try and see how we go with this one. This is very nice. So yeah, straight away then with this beer you get a lovely kind of oaky, you do get that kind of nice woody quality just blanketing the middle of your palate there. And there is just something telling me that this isn't, there's something that's telling me that this isn't oak barrels. It's been eaten, probably the bourbon barrels. I would think the bourbon barrels are oak, but there's something that's telling me that the port barrels might not be, because the woodiness that you get out of this, it really has an almost kind of charred sort of spicy thing. So could it be like, I've heard of walnut barrel aging, and I know there's a few other ones. I know in Japanese sake brewing, some of the sakes that I've reviewed for you on the channel, some of them use cedar barrel aging, but I really doubt that it would be cedar that they would use for port. But yeah, there is definitely a kind of spicy note about there. But the other thing to remember is that when the barrels, the inside of the barrels, they always char the edge of them, so it could just be a little bit of that. But then again, it could be the cocoa that's doing this, that's making it seem dry. But yeah, you do get that nice kind of woody quality there, that just blankets the middle of your palate. So in the middle third of your tongue you can feel the wood just kind of forming the base of the beer. As you go back into the rear third of your tongue, you also get a good little bit of that out of it. If you go to the very back third of your tongue, you get some of the kind of roasty bitter notes coming out of the beer, and I think that will be a mix of the cocoa, but probably also some kind of black malt, or you know, carafa or something like that. You will be getting a little bit of that coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, in the middle third of your palate, this is where most of the complexity is. You do get that woody note is just kind of lingering there. Of course, as you move further forward on that, as you move a little bit further forward on that part of your tongue, it's got a nice, it does get a little bit more, there is a wee touch of vanilla coming out of it, which is interesting, but again, that's very, very minimal. If you go to the very centre of your palate, then move forward, you do get a little bit of a nutty quality there. Behind the front corners of the palate, if you go back a little bit, you will find, just kind of diagonally back, that's where you get the kind of concentration of the slightly spicy characters of this beer. But yeah, in the kind of centre of your palate though, you get a nice little bit of a kind of brown sugary note there, and that's where you're getting this kind of leathery type flavour that the beer has. It's got a bit of a leathery quality to it, but at the same time it feels like it's got some kind of brown sugary notes infused into it. So it's got a bit of a, it's not quite enough to be treacle, but it's got quite a dark toasty-ish kind of brown sugar coming out of it, which I like. So yeah, you do get a little bit of the brown sugar there in the middle of your palate, but I think that really the brown sugar is kind of eclipsed by the sort of cocoa side of the beer. You really get the cocoa that's coming out of this one, it really dries everything else out. So it must be quite a high percentage cocoa that they've added to this. It must be about like a, you know, at least an 80% cocoa that they've added to this, because it really, the cocoa kind of sits on top of everything else that I've just described, and it just kind of, it's almost like it just kind of sits there and dries everything else out. So yeah, like I said, this is definitely one of the more dry Imperial Stouts that I've had, for sure. Definitely, especially in the barrel aged category as well. So yeah, it really strikes me as being very kind of dry, this one, compared to other stouts that I've had recently. But I like it. I do like what this beer's doing. It is quite unique, definitely unique. There's no doubt about that. So it's quite juicy and fruity when you've got the liquid on your tongue, but then as the aftertaste develops, a lot of these flavours I've described to you are when you're starting to kind of progress into the aftertaste. it really does dry out quite a lot, and that's when you get the majority of the flavour out of this one. So I really like how this goes together. In the back corners of the palate, then you get a nice little bit of a darker earthiness coming out of the beer, and then as you move further forward on the sides of the palate, it starts to get a wee bit more. The earthiness has a good bit of strength actually in the back corners of the palate, but then as you move further forward, it just gradually kind of fades away a little bit. As you reach the front corners of the tongue, you will get a little bit of a floral quality out of this one, and then behind, as you move around the front curve of the palate, it's got a little bit of grassiness. As I say though, this beer has aged for a year in 2 different types of barrels. Most of the hoppiness has kind of dropped off of it, but when hops drop off, it is usually the earthiness that's the last kind of thing to go, to be honest with you. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer is pretty interesting. The thing that always happens when you add fruit into the beer, it will suppress a little bit of the IBU, particularly around the kind of front curve of the tongue, so you can get a little bit of that cherry fruitiness around the front edge of your tongue, which will be suppressing the grassier part of the hops. But yeah. Yeah, the front third of your tongue is where all the fruitiness is going on in this one. So yeah, this is quite interesting. So yeah, I think further forward on the palate is where you can notice a few of the kind of port type things out of this. And as I say, port for me was always a very kind of sweet, basically a very sweet wine actually. I can't remember if port is how long they barrel age it for and things, but I did enjoy a good port, just not very well versed in it. That would be something for a trip to Portugal. I'd love to go down there, as I say, and have a look at it. But yeah, the front third of your palate is where all the fruitiness is going on. As I said earlier, when you take this beer in, you do get a good little impact from the cherries. So when you take it in, you've got a nice little bit of tartness there. And then that kind of goes towards the back of that front that front third of your tongue. But as you move further forward, you can just feel it rolling along. It rolls kind of along the front part of the palate. On the very kind of front tip of the tongue, you've got a nice blackcurranty, blackberry type quality out of this one. That develops more the further you go into the aftertaste, but you can really feel lingering there in the kind of middle of that front third of your tongue. It's got a bit of a kind of plummy, raisiny note to it. There is a wee bit of sharpness there. It does have a bit of that raisiny sharpness to it, but it's a bit of a more kind of plummy, figgy juiciness that kind of goes out of this one as well, and it's almost on the very kind of front tip of your tongue that the blackberry and blackcurranty flavours really evolve in this one. So yeah, this is the flavours that you get out of this beer are really very nice, and you get some of the juiciness from the cherries just around that front edge of your tongue too. But yeah, behind that, as I say, you get the leathery notes coming out of it, you get the cocoa in there, and there's a wee bit of that kind of brown sugary quality to it as well. I mean, I really like how this beer goes together. It's definitely one of the more complex barrel-aged imperial stouts that I've come across in recent times, and it's definitely got a little bit of a really kind of unique thing to it. I think the cocoa, in fairness, I think that the level of cocoa that's in this one maybe distracts a little bit from the individual qualities you would get from the bourbon barrel aging or the and I'm guessing it from the port barrel aging as well, because the cocoa seems to add a real dryness to the beer. But it doesn't, it doesn't make it a bad beer or anything like that. I just wonder, does the port, the thing that really strikes me as the unique feature of this beer, as someone who's obviously not drinking Portuguese beer very often, is the port barrel aging. That's the thing that really strikes me as very interesting. So I do wonder if the cocoa distracts a little bit, but that's me being, pernickety and thinking about the beer a bit too much. I mean, the main thing to take away is that this is an awesome beer. It really is. It's one of the quirkiest imperial stouts that I've come across in the last little while, and it's one of the ones that's really made me think a wee bit. So that's probably why you're getting a slightly longer review out of this one. But I have to say, big thumbs up to Dois Corvos on this one. I've definitely jumped in to the deep end, I think, with this beer. So I would love to try something that's a little bit more kind of straight up, like an IPA or something like this. I'd love to get to have a go at something from more of their core range of beers or whatever, but I don't know how likely it is that I can get a hold of that. You know, as I say, Portuguese beer doesn't make it to Scandinavia very often, but I will say thumbs up to Dois Corvos for this one. They've done an awesome beer here. So if you get the chance to try this one, if this beer is anything to go by, you know, try different stuff from this brewery. Very impressed with this. In terms of the mouthfeel then, let's look at that. I think it's fair to call this beer full-bodied. You always have to remember with the barrel-aged beers, like I say, that the mouthfeel goes down a little bit compared to a normal Imperial Stout or an unbarrel-aged one, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, as I say, this beer, quite full-bodied. Carbonation is what you'd expect as well. It's got a bit of smoothness to it. There's a wee bit of a kind of slight creaminess. Beer's still got that little fruit fly going around, but yeah, this, as I say, overall to me, this is quite a dry barrel-aged Imperial Stout compared to others, to be honest with you. But I do like that about it. It really suits. It really does kind of suit how everything goes together. The overall, I would say that the mouthfeel really is quite dry on this one. When it comes to IBUs, I'd say that this one's actually quite high. The cocoa's adding a good bit of IBUs, the hoppy bitterness is adding a good bit of IBUs, and I think to some degree, I suspect the barrel aging is adding to that as well. So maybe this one's about a 7, I'd say maybe an 80, even an 80 IBU beer. I think it's definitely fair to say that. This one's got a good level of bitterness to it. The malty side of it, most of the malts, as I say, I think take a back seat in this one to the barrel aging, but the barrel aging's got a bit of spiciness to it, but then the cocoa adjuncts really kind of make the malt base quite dry. There's not too much in the way of sweetness to this one. You've got some nice juicy fruity qualities to the beer, and you've also got a little bit of tartness to it as well. So overall, this is just a very, very kind of quirky Imperial Stout for me. One of the quirkiest ones I think I've ever reviewed on the channel, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, have a go at this beer for yourself if you get the chance to try it. I think this is a really random one for us to get here in Scandinavia, but as I say, it's always nice to have the opportunity to do a Portuguese beer review for you. So yeah, check this one out when you get the chance. But yeah, let's leave the review at that for this one. This one was the Redrum, an 11.5% Imperial Stout with cherries and cocoa added to the brew, and then aged in a mixture of bourbon and port barrels from Cervejeira Dois Corvos in Lisbon, Portugal. An awesome, awesome beer this. I do hope that I can try an IPA or something from these guys at some point in the future, and I seriously hope that I can review some more Portuguese beers for you. But yeah, been awesome to try this one. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Cervejeira Dois Corvos as well. Hopefully we can return to these guys fairly soon. Do give me some other Portuguese beer recommendations, and make sure that you check out my friend Craig over at Kent Beer Reviews, and you can have a look at his Portuguese beer reviews as well. Thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Cervejeira Dois Corvos, and I will return to these guys at some point fairly soon, fingers crossed. Thanks again for watching. Slàinte just now. Slàinte, skål, felicidades, cheer.